MinistryMonkey.com. What is it again? It's a jungle out there. We gotta redo this one.
Trust the monkey.
Well, hey guys, welcome to another Life and Student Ministry video post. I'm talking with this guy right here, Josh Cook, and we're going to talk a little bit today about how we maintain relationships with seniors after they graduate and things like that. Josh, what are some things that you guys are doing at your church to kind of keep those connections going with seniors?
Well, one thing that we found is specifically kids who are in your ministry and that are kind of going out to different schools all over maybe the region or the country. I think that's a problem that we all deal with. And it's easy to really lose contact with kids.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit less of an excuse to do that these days. Communication tools have improved. And one thing that we've found in years past is that there might be a few key kids that we kind of keep up with naturally because that's, you have a good relationship and you like and you understand what's going on with them. But there are some kids who can kind of fall through the cracks during that process.
Yeah.
So one thing that I've kind of specifically done, and I've written about this a little bit on my blog, and we've talked about it some on our podcast, is for me, 37 Signals High-Rise product was a big kind of revelation with this.
Yeah.
And High-Rise is just it's like a contact management web app that really was made for salespeople.
Uh-huh.
But I've written some about how, for me, it could potentially, especially for someone who thinks like me, could be a really huge tool maintaining any relationships, but specifically relationships with people you don't get to see all the time. So what we did in partnership with our college ministry last year was we took all of our graduating seniors from that year, and we added them all as contacts in High-Rise. And again, High-Rise is just a web application that helps you maintain records of your interactions and contact with kids. So what we did was we added them all, and then basically decided, okay, what points of contact do we want to have with those seniors this year? So we would say, well, we want, and we would go ahead and it allows you to make tasks for people. So we would say, we want every kid to receive 2 care packages, get, maybe 3 phone calls, a couple of handwritten notes, and if they're in our state, maybe like a one-on-one visit, something like that.
Yeah.
So you kind of decide that contact. Like when you can be intentional, you decide what you're going to do then. And then over the course of the semester, you kind of build in regular times into your work schedule that you go in there and you get that stuff done.
Yeah.
And it was really huge for us, and it sounds really simple. It's just kind of like a relational to-do list. And what it allows you to do is go in and, there's you can kind of fill in a field and say, I talked to this person, we talked about this, and, they're struggling with this, or, this is going really well. And this is what I'm going to do as a follow-up task. So what we kind of found was that, like, by starting the interactions and by having the to-do list is like kind of a catalyst for the interaction, it yields a lot more relational ministry later. Now, one thing that I'm really into this stuff, but one thing that kind of people say to me about it is like it seems really kind of callous.
Yeah.
Like it's like you're making things that should be natural, like a to-do item.
Yeah.
And I definitely get that. For me, I just know that I have a lot of work to do, and sometimes I get caught up in work that seems urgent but is not very important. Like for me, hanging out with a student or keeping track with a kid or grieving with a kid when something bad happens or rejoicing when something good happens is the most important thing I do.
Yeah.
That being said, when you have an urgent deadline coming up for some work-related thing, it feels in that moment more important. So those are kind of a way to remind. It's a way to at a moment when I'm thinking clear, remind myself what my priorities really are. So if those reminders come up and remind me, hey, I know that you're doing all this work at your desk, but what you really want to be doing is talking to this kid.
Yeah.
So I kind of have those things pop up.
So as we're talking now, like about seniors who are getting ready to graduate and move on from our ministry, you're using High-Rise to also keep in touch with them or relationships with them after they graduate, or
absolutely.
Do you have like a college guy you pass those kids off on to, or?
Well, so there's a college pastor, and we try to work together specifically for that handoff.
Yeah.
Because we're really fortunate that our college pastor has made it a point to be involved in the lives of our kids before they graduate.
Oh,
which
cool.
is smart, and I think the guys are people who are doing college ministry need to do that.
Yeah.
You need to have that relationship built in before. We kind of have a partnership on that, but it's something that we do. So I think all of us have kind of key relationships with kids who are coming through our ministry that don't need to end.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're not their primary, the primary point of contact at the church, whatever. But we want to keep those up. So we use that tool a lot to just really be intentional. And kind of our idea is that they may not come back to our church during the summer. They may come back on fall break and want to hang out at the youth group or want to go to the college group or our sanctuary service, or they might not really ever darken the doors of the church again.
Yeah.
But we're determined that whether or not they come back to us, we're going to keep going back to them. We're going to keep that tether there. And what we found is that you end up really having awesome moments from those little relational prompts. You'll send a kid a note, and it'll fall at a moment where they really needed a note.
Yeah.
And meaningful things come out of it.
So how does that work, though, when if you do this for a number of years, you're essentially keeping up with every single kid who has ever gone through your youth ministry, right?
Sure, yeah, and I think you might have to kind of build a plan that's like a phase plan. So
Yeah.
we're definitely we're in phase 1 with that last group. It was kind of an experiment. So maybe freshman year you keep up with the kids kind of a lot. Maybe the next year, or maybe even the next semester, you have a kind of fewer tasks for most kids. Maybe a couple of key kids you keep up pretty well with. Maybe you have a handoff.
Key
plan,
kids being your favorite ones, or?
Well, no, maybe
I'm kidding.
So, well, yeah, but I think it's good to say, like, we have multiple users on the account. So maybe
Okay.
there are 4 or 5 kids that I have a voice into. I really have
Yeah.
a voice in their lives. And then there's another guy in the ministry who there are 4 or 5 kids that really he needs to keep up with, and those relationships kind of don't end. I think we all have relationships where God gives us a
Yeah.
special role in a kid's life. So I
Totally.
think it's important to maintain those. And just it's for me, High Rise has reminded me, I know that you haven't seen this kid in 4 months, and I know that you kind of like you're focused on these kids here or these projects here, but that kid still matters like he mattered last year.
Yeah.
And you still have a role in his life. So it's the way, man. I just have realized that I'll spend a week working really hard and look back and think, man, I worked really hard on everything that I don't care about, and I did no work on anything that I really care about. It's easy to do
Yeah.
that sometimes, and it's a good way to have an external brain that reminds you of your priorities.
Yeah, and the stuff that actually is life-changing and the stuff that's not life-changing, like as much as we would all like to think that the messages that we prepare to present every week to the teens are life-changing, mine aren't. I don't know how many lives have been changed as a result of a talk
Mine are pretty
I gave.
life-changing, man. Mine
Well,
are absolutely
hear-
life-changing for every kid that comes through the door every time I preach.
We need to talk about that then, because giving talks and stuff are cool and everything, and they can be kind of like a basis or foundation for the relationship stuff later. But it's that, like you're saying, those follow-ups, this context, that's what's life-changing, not so much the stuff that we pour into our desk every week. It's important, but not life-changing per se.
No, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I found that my talks get better as the kids like me more. The more I invest in relationships with kids, and the more I, build trust with them, they tend to like my talks a little better. I'm not sure what that's all about.
Yeah, and the more they turn into a dialogue rather than a talk,
Yeah, sure.
So
absolutely.
it's definitely true. So where can they find this high-rise stuff you're talking about? This program that helps?
I think highrisehq.com. Now I get obsessed with tools. Don't get obsessed. If you need a notebook, get a notebook. If you do this on legal paper, do it on legal paper. If you have a Word document or whatever, High-Rise works for me. It makes sense for me. It also costs money. So,
Yeah.
There are other ways you can do this stuff without, maybe you can just, kind of hack your email program and that'll help you do it. But don't get obsessed with the product.
There's
do the work.
One of the other youth pastors here in town where I live, has he has an iPhone, and he's got like all the great apps on it and stuff. But the best method that he still uses for remembering notes is to write it on his hand.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, you got the freaking iPhone, but that's
You get some voice notes, man.
yeah. But he's like, it still works best just to write it on my hand. So
That's cool.
yeah. So well, thanks, Josh. If people wanted to find
man.
out more about you and stuff, where would they check you out at your blog and stuff?
Youthhacks.com.
Youthhacks, one word.com.
Yes.
Well, thanks, Josh. Appreciate your time and your tips on how to keep up and follow up with kids and youth ministry. So appreciate it, man. Thanks.
Yeah, man, no problem.